Okay, well, I promised the the rest of The Girl at the Bottom of the Ocean for you paid subscribers. So here we are. Yeah, you get a video. I am absolutely lazy right now. Also, this isn't quite lazy. This is me being ready to get my sunburn on. So yeah, that's a real thing. Ready to get my sunburn on because I haven't really gotten any this year. But without further ado, Chapter 8, The Girl at the Bottom of the Ocean. I didn't know how many more weeks went by. Using the seasons as a marker didn't work because it was Florida. Seasons don't exist here. I followed Samantha as much as I could. She had even started some kind of vague routine, which brought a smile to my face. It was her weekly shopping trip that gave me the most flexibility. To grab her before she went inside would be the easiest thing to do. I don't like that sentence. Can I do that again? Oh, wait, I can. It was her weekly shopping trip that gave me the most flexibility. To grab her before she went inside would be the easiest thing to do. I began plotting and planning. I wrote notes on a single sheet of paper, on a hard surface, even knowing I'd burn the paper later. My notes were more like bullet points, with no real direction, except to me. That was how I always wrote notes, even in college. I'm weird, but it's what makes things easier for me. Besides, as long as I understand what I wrote, that's really all that matters. Plus, it gives plausible deniability to anyone who might be going through my purse and reads them. Dumb. I jotted down a general block of time and day of the week that Samantha went to the grocery store. Wednesdays between 10 a.m. and noon. Again, not ideal, but something would come to fruition. Maybe I'd get lucky and grab her earlier in the day. Rationalization told me that children had to be... Okay, now I'm just adding words here. Rationalization told me that children had been taken from crowded shopping malls, so taking an adult from a parking lot that was likely to be empty should be just as easy. Should was the key word there. Adults had a tendency to scream out for help. Because let's face it, they do. What the hell was I watching yesterday where somebody was screaming, "Help me," and there was quite literally no one in the town around? Oh, it was the Vampire Diaries. Yeah, screaming into essentially oblivion for help, but like ain't nobody around. So it's like that whole oh fuck, what is it? If a tree falls in the woods, does it really make a sound? It's like that. Does it make a sound? Well, rationalization says yes, there's a sound, but if there's nobody around to hear it, how can you verify that? So it's kind of one of those things. I'm confident to a reasonable level that I can get her without much of a fight. Besides, making chloroform is so easy, a novice can do it. I've still got some of that stashed in the garage, along with smelling salts. I want the people to kill... I want the people I kill to know why I'm killing them. I was lost in thought when Dom walked into the kitchen. Hey, Morg, you okay? You look like you're in space. Yep, I'm great. What are you up to? Well, that was probably a little bit too enthusiastic, but whatever. We're just going to keep on trucking. Creating some non-annoying NPCs for the game I'm working on. I'm so happy that I don't need to know how to code or really do anything other than click things and then upload. You got the character creator installed? Let me see! I jumped out of my chair and headed for the living room. See, Dom helps design mods for video games and makes good money doing it. I get to test the mods, so it's a win-win. But a gaming group is also where he met Samantha. Bitch. Dom ambled to the couch, sandwich in hand, and sat down. He handed me the controller, and my troubles melted away for the next bit of time. I played the game and told Dom things I liked and didn't. He took good notes, asking for suggestions, noting those too. Okay, That's all I needed for now. Thanks, Morg. He looked at me with such love in his eyes I couldn't be annoyed with him anymore. Always, I said, winking. I stood up and went into the office. It was supposed to be a bedroom, but was too small, so it was my workspace for the days I chose to work from home. I would have winked when she winked, but I can't wink, so that's not gonna happen. Let me clarify. Dom's video game thing is not his full-time job. He works for the cable company doing installations and troubleshooting. My job? Again, I don't hate it, but okay, maybe I do. Or I just hate customer service. I work for an online store responding to customer service chats and emails. It's a good thing I don't have to talk to some of these idiots on the phone. I was lucky enough to I don't even want to know where that was going, so we're just going to leave that. There's shit was probably going to come out of my mouth somehow, some way. I don't even know how, because once you hear the sentence the way it's written, you won't understand either. I was lucky enough to set my own schedule within some required timeframes. It's not as confusing as it sounded. The company said work 3 days, Monday through Friday, 4-hour days between the hours of, and they gave blocks to choose from. It didn't have to be the same each day either. I liked the flexibility and could work more than 4 hours per day, which I usually did. Today, however, I wasn't working. I was researching and looking at satellite images of beaches. My plan was to kill Samantha and dump her body in the ocean. It was much more difficult than I expected. Okay, I don't like that either, but whatever. This is where we are. Chapter 9. The day had finally come. I didn't do anything different than any other day, as I wasn't trying to draw unnecessary attention. I changed nothing about my routine and left the house before 9 p.m. I parked at the same intersection I last watched from, waiting for Samantha to leave her house. Fate smiled on me today. She left less than 5 minutes after I shifted into park. I felt calm and cold, shifted into drive, and followed. Today, Samantha stopped at a farmer's market first. At 9 p.m., though? Okay, then. Really confused. That should probably be in the morning. But okay. I'll let it slide. It was a clever idea if she planned to pick up frozen goods at the grocery store. Not that she'd make it into the store. I'd make sure of that. She shopped for 36 minutes before paying and getting back into her car. I continued to follow 2 car lengths back to the grocery store. We waited at a light to pull into the lot, and I pulled a cap over my head and adjusted my massive sunglasses. The light turned green, my signal to get to work. Samantha pulled into a spot in the back of the lot. Does it matter? I sneered at her ignorance, grabbing a bottle and rag from the cup holder, still watching. I'd placed a tarp in the cargo hold while Dom was asleep last night. Okay, so yeah, that should actually be AM. Fun times. Now, where was I? My target walked behind my Jeep, and I exited just as she passed. I left it running and jogged out to her as noiselessly as I could. Here we go again with the not writing for audio. It's a good thing I now have this in my brain, and it's very present when I write. Still working on book 8 because, well, who gives a fuck that it's been 8 months or something. I apparently work best under self-imposed ridiculous deadlines, so we're just going to leave it there. Same thing with Amelia Earhart. It's going to be, they're both going to release the end of this year, and yeah, that's fun. Okay, so the lot was empty of people, not even an employee gathering shopping carts. As I approached, I poured the chloroform onto the rag and placed the bottle in the pouch of my hoodie. I crept up 2 more steps and reached my arm around her, forcing the soaked rag over her mouth. Apologies, my throat is just not my friend. Chapter 10. I unloaded her body in the beach parking lot. By unloaded, it should be unsaid that I pulled her out of the cargo area of my Jeep by her hair and let her fall. I had no care for her safety. I was going to kill her anyway. She started moving around, kind of flopping like a fish out of water. It amused me, and I laughed a bit as I watched her struggle. Then she felt the pain of having slammed her head on the asphalt. "Ow," she said, still groggy. She touched the back of her head and pulled her hand back in front of her face, looking for blood and finding none. She saw that her feet were tied together and pulled. Wow. I don't even know what the fuck that sentence says, so I'm going to read it properly and then fix it. And pulled on the knot in a vain attempt to get free. So I had that typed out as the no in a vain attempt to get free. And the W and the T are 4 letters apart, so I'm really confused how that happened. On the keyboard, they're 4 letters apart. I bent down, grabbing a handful of her hair and yanking her head back. She cried out, and I watched the fear fill her eyes before they misted over, and then she started to cry. "Please, who are you? What do you want?" That's probably the best bit of acting I've ever done. "Who I am is of no importance now. What do I want? I want to kill you. And I will, but not yet." Her face twisted in confusion. I don't even know you to make you want to kill me." "Just because you don't know me doesn't mean I shouldn't want to kill you." I kicked her in the stomach, and she folded on top of her legs in some weird yoga pose. I pulled the hatch of my Jeep down and locked it. Then I bent down and grabbed Samantha by the back of her shirt and tried to pull. The only thing I accomplished was to pull the shirt up, her body staying where it had dropped to. I shifted my weight and tried to get a good enough grip on the back of her neck, but my hands were too small. I growled and took up a handful of hair again, pulled her from the asphalt to the sand. She was heavier than I expected, but I pulled until her whole body was on the sand. It got a little easier the further I went, because sand shifts. She woke up and tried to kick while continuing to scream, but I'd kept her ankles tied together. Her writhing made it more difficult to keep pulling her, so I stopped. Her head fell to the sand when I let go of her hair, but before she knew enough to try to army crawl away, I was straddled over her. I said nothing and pulled the knife from my pocket. She watched in frozen terror as I pulled her shirt up over her stomach and poked her with the knife tip. "This is what happens when you try to steal other women's husbands," I said, starting to carve the word whore into her soft flesh. She screamed, piercing the morning silence. Then I dropped a knee down into her chest, knocking the air from her lungs. That should keep her from squirming long enough to get her to the rocky outcropping I'd planned to use as my weapon. I dragged her halfway before she got her strength back. I repeated what I'd done the first time, and I dropped her head into the sand. Oh, no, there's not an and there. Okay, let's try that again. I repeated what I'd done the first time I dropped her head into the sand. She was too dazed, or too stupid, to see it coming. Chapter 11. Samantha opened her eyes, again screaming futilely for help. That I expected, but it annoyed me anyway. I stepped into her line of sight, blocking out the moon and its reflection on the water. I mean, you can still see the moon, but whatever. We're going to go with the sun, because there is no moon. It's fucking 10 o'clock in the morning. So I'm sitting here making sure now that I have this all properly. I mean, you know what? What if she does go to a farmer's market at 10 p.m.? Because, I mean, some of them are that late. Some of them are open until 10 o'clock at night, so that'll work. And also, I think I wrote this. Pretty sure I wrote this when things were still open until midnight. So, okay, we'll just change all that. All right, let me start this over again. Chapter 11. Samantha opened her eyes again, screaming futilely for help. That I expected, but it annoyed me anyway. I stepped into her line of sight, blocking out the moon and its reflection on the water. Tonight, you die, Samantha. Who are you? Why do you want to kill me? She struggled to see my face, to see anything that might give her a clue to my identity. I stepped to my right, allowing a bit of moonlight to shine. She gasped, though not in recognition. You're a woman? Does my voice sound like a man's? No, but why? I've never seen you before. Liar! You know exactly who I am. Her eyes widened in recognition and fear. I do know you. You're Dom's wife. She recoiled so much it appeared she was trying to crawl inside the boulder I'd propped her up against. I clapped, mocking her, while getting closer to her. There you go. I'm sure you can now guess why you're going to die, but allow me to elaborate. I stopped a foot or so away, stooping to pick up a rock. Samantha curled up, her shirt covered in blood from what I'd done to her stomach, her arms wrapping as much of her head and face as possible. I laughed. Please don't. And that's supposed to stop me. I let out a laugh that sounded like a cartoon villain. You're a special kind of stupid, aren't you? First, you think you can steal another woman's husband just because you bat your eyes. Now, you think I'll just walk away? Samantha kicked out, tripping me. I fell backwards and was up as quick as I went down. I admire your spirit, I chastised, picking up the rock that fell from my hand when I landed. Time to say goodbye, Samantha. I raised the rock as I crept toward her, intentionally slow. I wanted her to feel the fear, to feel the blinding pain as the last bits of life escaped her body. Samantha shrieked as I brought the rock down, the first of many blows to her face and head. I'd hit her so hard that, at one point, her blood splattered onto my face. That was always the gross part. I tried not to wear it often, though. The rock caved the side of her head in with a loud crack. Blood washed down, staining her blonde hair red. She finally stopped seizing and grunting after that last hit. I held onto the rock while clutching a handful of hair just below where I bashed her skull in. I slid her body away from the boulder and immediately dropped it. My arms were tired. Then I felt the next adrenaline rush and bent down to maneuver her to a position I could pick her up and carry her now limp body. That lasted a whole 10 feet or so. I still had another 20 to reach the shoreline. I dropped her, took hold of the rope around her ankles, and pulled. It was so much easier that way. The closer to the water I got, the more sand caked in her hair. The blood had stopped flowing almost immediately upon her death. I'd have to go back and clean that up by taking the bloody sand to the ocean, too. At that moment, I was too concerned with dumping her dead body and cleaning her blood off my face. The beach was empty. One less worry. The next time I looked down, my feet were losing visibility under the water, along with half of the girl's body. I turned around to look at her. Her face was twisted in a scream, eyes still wide. Her blonde hair was matted to her head. Blood reflected black in the moonlight. She was still beautiful by any standard. By mine, however, she was hideous, inside and out. Samantha's ugly heart now shone through via blunt force trauma. Too bad no one would really see it until her body somehow surfaced. I finally reached a point where I could no longer stand and not drown myself, so I let her go. She floated several feet out, assisted by the movement of the ocean, before sinking. When I was satisfied she'd sunk far enough, I turned and made my way back to the shore. I was worn out, but not yet finished. An hour later, I'd picked up all the blood-covered sand and the rock I beat her with, and had thrown it all into the ocean. I smiled at the moon and sea before going back to my Jeep and changing my clothes. I pulled a black garbage bag out of the back and put my clothes in it, then tied it up and tossed it back in the cargo area. I stretched, now being changed in fresh clothes, and set off for home. Chapter 12. Dom had been out cold when I walked in. I crawled into bed and he still didn't move. I kissed his cheek and settled down, a smile on my face as I fell asleep. I woke up around 9 a.m. and went to the kitchen for coffee. You were dead, Morg. Huh? I froze. Did he somehow know? You were sleeping so deep, it was like you were dead. Oh, I replied, groggy. I wiped the sleep from my eyes and poured a cup of coffee. A single sip woke me up, bringing a smile to my lips. I moaned in pleasure and took the cup to the bar, sitting next to Dom, smile still on my face. Why are you so happy? I just feel really good. I mean, I'm tired, but I feel good. I can't tell you how happy I am to hear you say that, Morg. Dom leaned over and kissed me. It's good to have you back. The poor man still had no idea. I planned to keep it that way. So, there we have it. Me with no makeup. And the end of The Girl at the Bottom of the Ocean. I hope you enjoyed this, and share away, friends. Share away.